Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. It's so good to be with you guys. As I said yesterday, I'm gonna be keeping you updated to what's going on, while highlighting some key information that you need to know. Uh, like always, before I launch into talking about the details and so forth, I want to remind you about our live stream on Friday. I will post something for you. And for those who might be joining us for the first time, please do me a favor and subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. So, and to all of you, I would say thank you for your continued support. It means a lot to us. So, here's what are we going to talk about today. There are three key issues I need you to sort of be aware of and understand where things are going. Well, actually, there are four, but we can say it in three. One of them is the SWIFT system. There is something that you need to know that Western media is now reporting on. Second thing, we're going to talk about why the U.S. is sharing intelligence with China. Was it a smart move or not? And third one is why a U.S. delegation is in Taiwan, given what's going on. And the fourth item, it has to do with Ukraine asking for a membership in the EU. And what does it mean? So let's start with the SWIFT system first. Just briefly, and I'm not going to touch too much on this because I want to focus on the geopolitical ramifications of what's taking place right now, of course, in Ukraine, but also how you can link this one to what's going to be next in Taiwan. And that is the reason for it. But for the SWIFT system, which you all know what it is, I need you to understand one thing. Despite what you hear, we're going to crush the Russians' economy. And once again, guys, we are not supporting Russia here or any other entity. I am here to provide you an objective assessments to the best of my abilities. No more, no less. You can take it. You can reject it. You are entitled to whatever, and I respect your opinion, but you reach your own conclusions. All I'm doing here is breaking things down for you, geopolitically speaking, so you can put the pieces together, because I am certain that what the media is saying versus what it is are two separate things. So let's talk about the SWIFT system. Well, as I said last time, the messages coming out of the West and the US is that we're going to crush or punish, that's the word that's been used. We're going to use harsh sanctions to punish Russians and so forth by removing them out of the SWIFT system. Okay? But here is the thing. There is an alternative to SWIFT system when it comes down to Russia. And that one has been in the works and in place since 2014. And that SWIFT, that system is called the SPFS, System for Transfer of Financial Messages. It is already, once again, you are not going to hear this anywhere else. I mean, maybe you might hear it in some financial shows if they really address this, but in any event, this system is already account for about 20% of Russia's international trade. Okay, that's 20% for that. There is also another system that is based on another platform. Okay, and that platform called CIPS, which stands for China Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. And that one has about 100 members in it, or 100 countries are involved. And basically the reason why it was built to internationalize the Chinese yuan currency. Remember, the Chinese yuan is considered one of the global currencies. It's just part of that. What was interesting about that is that in 2021, it was about 75% increase in the use of that in comparison to 2020. And it processed about $12.6 trillion or 80 trillion yuan. So that just to, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, whatever. It's just to highlight to you that what you hear in the media versus what it is. And by the way, this system, there are some mainstream banks from the West, such as HSBC. It is one of them. There's another one that is a Standard Chartered, which is a British multinational banking and financial services company. It's headquartered in London, so they are part of that system. So you can just see, okay, you're gonna say, well, we're gonna take them out of the SWIFT, but they didn't take them completely out of the SWIFT because it's gonna be harming us in the US, Europe, the second, but of course they are not gonna admit to it. That's just the reality of it. Okay. Now, let me talk to you about the US sharing intelligence with China. Of course, just FYI, to let you know, this didn't happen yesterday or the day before. This has happened quite a while. It's just usually with information like that. What's the word I'm looking for? When it is classified, you still have to obey the rules and regulations. That's just how it works in the United States. Yes, when I used to work in Washington, D.C., you have access to classified information, whatever, but yes, I'm still bound by the law because that's the law, and I respect the law no matter what. But in any event, so this didn't happen yesterday, but I'm not here to talk about that. Why I'm here to talk about what was the purpose? Why did the U.S. provide China with sensitive intelligence? That was a sensitive intelligence. This is not like you basic info based on satellites, imagery, of course, from the military satellites in space and so forth. And the common question that we need to ask, there are about two or three. Was the administration stupid to do such thing? Is this lack of leadership? Or did the US intend for it to draw a wedge between China and Russia? Whatever the answer may be, it's up to you to reach your own conclusions, but just common wisdom suggests that how can you share intelligence with a country, China in this case, that you've been hammering down with labeling, with whatever abuses, human rights and so forth, plus the tariffs that you impose on them in 2018? And do you expect them to answer you by saying, sure, we will assist you, the US, in whatever you want? It's just common sense. So what China end up doing is end up sharing the intelligence with Russia, which what you will expect from a country that is building its relationship with China, with Russia rather. And this is why I wanted to talk to you about today, is just to understand and put this within the greater geopolitical chess game that is going on. And I'm going to use some history here for you to sort of put things in perspective. Let's go back to around 1969, around that time, when Henry Kissinger made the secret trip to China. Okay? Well, I made a secret trip because at that time, the Pentagon and the State Department were left out. Okay? And when Henry Kissinger met with Zhou Lai, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Zhou Lai, first, Henry Kissinger said that, well, this guy is an ideologue. And later on, Henry Kissinger realized that he's dealing with one of the smartest person who understood the geopolitical landscape at that time. Because what was the objective of the trip at that time? Okay, given the history between China and Russia, we wanted to pull China into our orbit so it can go against Russia. At that time, Soviet Union. And what we end up doing is we end up sharing technology, we end up sharing information with China. Okay. It was later on when the Pentagon found out that Henry Kissinger went on a secret trip. On his way back, somebody stole the memo when he was taking a nap on a plane. My reason for wanting to just highlight this, now you look at the table have turned around. At that time, we were trying to sort of bring China to our camp, per se, so we can isolate the Soviet Union at that time. Now the table have turned around. And the analogy that I can provide you with, guys, it's something simple we all may be familiar with. Poker game. Or play poker sometimes, for whomever played poker. I don't. But it's just the analogy. So you end up having three players on a table. And the table, the poker table, will be the geopolitical poker table, that is. So, and there are only main three players that matter on that game: US, Russia, and China. So, well, one of those three is asking, I wonder who the sucker is. Why? It's because you're always going to have two players that's going to team up on one. And in this case, by having the United States sharing the intelligence with China, okay, and China went ahead and shared it with Russia, it tells you who the sucker is. But also, it highlights to you the idea. Okay, let me silence this phone. It highlights to you the idea of, is the game going in favor of Russia and China? Because pragmatically speaking, why would you want to share intelligence with a country that you've been hammering down with labels and so forth, and you expect some sort of a good gesture towards you in return? Anyone, any country in a right mind, it's not going to just buy the bait. Basically, that's what it is. China didn't take the bait. They knew, they understood, because China is taking a step back and watching right now. This is why China didn't condemn Russia's action, and China condemned US sanctions and European sanctions on Russia. It's geopolitical game, guys. It's the chess game. Countries going to have to look for their own interest. And that is one of the key aspects to understanding the dynamics. Could it be that the US made a mistake? Could it be that the US gambled with sharing the information, which, if I were advising hypothetically the government, it's like, what does the last thing you want to do? Because they will be laughing at you. You've been insulting them yesterday, and today you want to do business with them? It just doesn't work that way. Let alone if you understood how the Asian culture is. To them, trust means a lot. Friendship means a lot. And they don't kind of like just, you go with whatever the wind is blowing. It just doesn't work that way. And this is why it becomes clear to China, it makes perfect sense to share the information with Russia. Because to me personally, and this is my personal assessments, this gesture, just the gesture itself, it cements that relationship, the bond between President Putin and President Xi. The relationship that they are, as I argued in my book, and I did put that in, there was a section that I wrote about it, that it behooves now the two countries, Russia and China, to put their past behind. Turn that page. Look for the future. And they will be better off together than individually. Because if they want to beat geopolitically the United States, they're going to do it together. The question that they need to ask is, what are they going to be bringing to the table together? And with what's going on in Ukraine right now, it became evident that to China, this is a perfect opportunity to see what's going to be happening. And they already, if I am to assess it this way, already China is seeing the writing on the wall. What I mean by that? Did you see any Western military on Ukraine territory? Did you see the US sending military troops to Ukraine? Or Germany or France or UK, whatever? None. All they're saying is, we have to support Ukraine. We're going to have to send weapons to Ukraine for them to defend themselves. We all know they stand no chance, right? But that's not the point. The point is that China is seeing the writing on the wall. And this is why I said what I said last time about the question that I asked you about Taiwan. And this one is very important to understand. Why is this important? It's because President Biden just sent a delegation from the United States to Taiwan. Is this another provocation? I mean, what will be the purpose of a trip like that, given what's going on the global landscape? And interestingly enough, if you find out who in the delegation, I know about 3 of them. I met one of them personally, but the other 2 are Mike Mullen, who was the Chairman Joint Chief of Staff way back in the Obama administration, Mike Mullen. And also, it was Michel Flourney. Michel Flourney used to be the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Okay. And what's interesting about her is that she stepped down from that position and formed a company we call the Global Strategic Advisory Firm with none other than the current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. Once again, you can read between the lines where this is all going, and this is why you see in the advocacy for what you are hearing right now about let's support Taiwan, let's support Ukraine, And by the way, Michelle Flourney, it is expected, she's known within the circles in Washington, unexpected possibility that she might be the next Secretary of Defense. Possibly, I said. So these things can go back and forth. What's interesting also about the statement that was made by none other than former NATO commander, General Wesley Clark. Well, Wesley Clark was talking about maybe it is time to consider no-fly zone in Ukraine, which will be a terrible mistake because Russia is not Iraq. Russia will shoot down whatever. But once again, you guys see the big picture. The narrative, the share of intelligence, and the trip of the delegation to Taiwan. In the case of Wesley Clark, what has not been disclosed openly, that it must be noted that General Clark was the leading figure in NATO's bombing of Yugoslavia, against the to back or support what they called at that time separatist rebels in Kosovo. I found it very ironic that for those, we call them a good separatists, for the separatists in Donbass, we call them the bad one. Once again, you always have to sort of think about the moving pieces, as I always say. So in the case of Taiwan, like I said last time, if I'm sitting in Taiwan as a member of a government, as a scenario, whatever, whether President Tsai or I'm speaking of President Tsai, her doctoral stuff is not conclusive. It's inconclusive. So she can't be called Dr. Tsai. No. She doesn't have that officially. So it becomes a question of, did the delegation want to Taiwan to reassure that we will stand by you? Did the delegation want also to highlight to China that we will stand by Taiwan, just in case? Because here is the thing, and I'm going to say it straightforward. In my assessment, that's where the next stop is. That's where the next conflict is, because the dust is going to settle on this Ukraine issue. Mark my word on it. Otherwise, you will have seen the intervention of the West in Ukraine right now. They know it's not winnable for them. And as we speak, there is a long convoy now is heading out to Kiev. Basically, they're going to surround the Kiev and take over. So this is where that understanding those dynamics, by at the time the U.S. shared the intelligence, by the time the delegation went over to Taiwan, what it all means. And China should be seeing the writing on the wall, how things are going to go. Of course, the scenario in China slightly different than the one in Ukraine. Geography plays a role into that. This is why geography is very, very important. And we intend to talk a little bit more about this on Friday when we do live stream. But on Thursday, for our members, there are some other aspects that we can't talk about here. We're going to be detailing some of that stuff there. So In any event, this is the understanding of now the question that's going to become is how will China proceed moving forward? Let me see this one here. Thank you for whomever put in the super sticker. I couldn't see the name. So I want to say thank you, guys. I appreciate it. So, and my sincere apologies. I won't be able to take questions here, so because there is no way for me to work it out through here. So, and I'll be happy to answer those on Friday if you decide to join us for live stream. So thank you once again for your super sticker. So the idea, as I said again, the question that's going to become now is how Taiwan intends to proceed. And this is like in the worst scenario. On the other hand, it'll become for China a matter of credibility, because it's no different than what's taking place in Russia right now, in Ukraine, that if Russia didn't act, okay, that's going to be perceived as nothing but just bluffing. So to President Putin, it is now or never. Yes, he's putting everything online as risking so many things, but and yet the fundamental reason as to why all this happens has never been addressed by the West. It would be so easy if only the President of the United States can state publicly, we're going to halt the expansion of NATO eastward. We are not going to admit Moldova or Latvia or Ukraine or Georgia, whatever, to NATO. And because here's the thing. What I found out is that the what's called the Office of the Security in Europe, it's called the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, documented some violations. Okay, those violations has to do with ceasefire, and they documented them and monitored that for quite a while, and stated that it was a dangerous increase in ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine. And they put a number to it. The number, I'll be happy to post it for you guys. The number was about 5,667 violations and 4,093 explosions. And most of those violations were inside the borders of the Donetsk and Luhansk, the new independent republics. In addition, this is the OSCE documenting all this, is that the Ukraine government has been shelling that area. 700 violations of that. And this is where you heard about, this is not credible. Those are false flags incidents that are staged by the separatists. And this is what the US and British have claimed, which is not true, because those are documented by the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So that is very, very important to understand. And with all this, and tie it to the trip by the delegation to Russia. Thank you so much for your super sticker. I appreciate it. For the delegation to Taiwan, I have to switch between the screens so I can get you the accurate information. So for you to tie this one to how events are unfolding on the ground versus what the media is reporting. And all this provides China a clear read into what to expect moving forward. It also provides Taiwan a clear understanding that despite what they might hear, the West is not going to risk it. It's no different than what it is with Ukraine. Ukraine's been saying, "Where's Europe now?" You know, I'm not laughing out of laughter because it's a painful situation. Nobody wants to see this. I mean, who wants to see this? Do we want to see, people die for something that could be preventable? And I use the term could be preventable. But we choose to ignore, we, the West, we choose to ignore that. And once again, I'm being objective here. I'm not favoring one side over another. I'm saying what is realistic. So to Taiwan, it's going to be thinking in terms of, you better get it. Because that's exactly what Ukraine now is finding out. Yes, Europeans saying, we will send you over $500 million worth of weapon. The US will send about $500 million of weapon, equivalency of $1 billion, but you're going to fight yourself. We're not going to put our soldiers to die for Ukraine. That's basically the bottom line to it. And I don't see anything different from the scenario in Taiwan should it get to that. Of course, once again, you keep the geography in mind when considering the conflicts in Taiwan in comparison to that of Ukraine. So that is the importance of this. And this is why I wanted to come on the air and let you know. Let me see. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to it. Sometimes I can't see the names. So I want to say thank you for your super sticker. I appreciate it. And this is why I wanted to highlight to you, in the case of the share of intelligence, was it, literally stupidity, or was it just a calculated move, given the history of what took place back then during the Kissinger time, the opening to China? I don't see, personally, using always history, I do not see how China will kind of go against Russia. I just do not see that no matter what. Why? Because China is in a different position today. The geopolitical landscape today is different. And China and Russia, they are realizing together, are far better, stronger than if they are individual. And like, for example, with the idea of the financial restrictions now they put in, I am certain so many countries now looking at this and their eyes getting wide open, because this is the control, the financial aspect, that they're going to be seeking other alternatives. And I said it a couple of years ago. Of course, I was kind of criticized for it. Oh, no, the dollar will remain. Yeah, the dollar for now. But don't expect countries just to be idle, not thinking of alternatives. And when that happens, that's going to be the collapse of the US dollar. A word you don't hear much in the West. It's because how the system is set up to do it. So, thank you for your super sticker. I couldn't see the name here. So B, that's all it says right there. So I appreciate it. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys briefly here. And I am going to leave you with two questions that you need to consider. The first one is Russia serious about the use of nuclear weapon? And the second one is, what would China do in case Taiwan declared independence? I repeat these two questions for you. And this is, guys, just food for thoughts, just to consider while taking into consideration the dynamics on the global stage. Is Russia serious about the use of nuclear weapons? And second question, what would China do in case Taiwan declares independence? I hope to see you guys on Friday for our live stream. And we're going to have a great show for that, because we got some working on some pieces that we didn't do before. So it will be the first time we're going to do that. And if there's any other developments, I certainly will get on the air and share them with you, just to keep you informed and update. My advice is just make sure you fact check the information. What's the word I'm looking for? Be careful what you consume as far as the information, because what's going on right now is entering into the next phase. And the next phase is the information war. Who's going to win the minds of the masses? And this is where psychology comes in. Ross and Elizabeth will be far better to talk about this than me. It's not my area. That's why I don't say anything about it. And I believe Elizabeth's going to be addressing this particular aspect that you need to know in comparison to the statements coming out of the political leaders, decision makers, and so forth, and retired generals and so forth. It's all converged in one particular area. So I hope you find this information very useful, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. As always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.